Everybody, quick announcement before the video begins. I have a Twitch now. Yes, I have a Twitch. It's rayez_22, and I am going to be trying to stream on there. No guarantee that I'm going to be good at it, but I'm going to try. So if you would like to follow me on there, then you can. It's rayez_22, but only if you want to. Anyway, I love you guys, and enjoy the video. Hello dudes, dudettes, and everything in between. I'm Rayez, and welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk, a series where I talk about things nobody asked for a minute too long. Munchausen syndrome by proxy, bad mothers, murder. 3 things that don't ever go good together or on their own, really. If you have murder, you're still gonna go to prison with a guy named Buffalo Bill, who's in there for not paying his bills. Get it? Anyway, today we are discussing a very complex case, so complex that I have to break it into 2 parts to convey all of the information. I'm talking, of course, about the infamous Gypsy Rose Blanchard and Dee Dee Blanchard case. I'm gonna be honest, this has been my favorite true crime case of all time because of how detailed it is and how much went into it before the actual murder. It's not like a guy murdered his wife because she was cheating, it's much more. And I happen to be a bit of a Blanchard nerd, highly invested if you will. So join me down this rabbit hole, you have no choice now, mwahaha. Gypsy Rose Blanchard was born on July 27, 1991 to Rob and Dee Dee Blanchard, who divorced shortly after she was born, because he claimed to have married her for the wrong reasons. While Rob tried desperately to keep in touch with his daughter, Dee Dee would do whatever it took to keep them apart, which is what she did with everybody who tried to come near Gypsy, because she was an abuser, and abusers try to keep their victims isolated. Every time Rob and Dee Dee would talk, there was something wrong with Gypsy. Sleep apnea, muscular dystrophy, which made her wheelchair-bound, and she required a feeding tube, seizures, asthma, hearing impairments, visual impairments, you name it, this girl had it. She was on many different medications, slept using a sleep apnea machine, multiple surgeries, including on her eyes, and she had her salivary glands removed. She was on so many medications and missing her salivary glands that her teeth eventually rotted and had to be extracted. But here's the thing. Gypsy Rose never had any illnesses or physical problems. Her mother was convincing her own daughter and everybody else that her daughter was severely sick for both attention and money and gifts from people that donated to them out of sympathy for Gypsy. She wanted to be seen as a hero for taking care of this sick child that was never even sick to begin with. And because Dee Dee was so charming, people believed her. She also convinced Gypsy that she was several years younger than she actually was to make her feel helpless and like she really needed her mom, when in reality she didn't need her. She would have done just fine without her, but she had to have that control in their relationship. The thought was that she was mommy dearest, but also mommy deadliest. Whenever a doctor would call bullshit on her claims that her child was sick, she would go to another doctor, and this is called doctor hopping, and she'd do this until somebody would be naive enough to believe her. Dee Dee claimed to be a victim of Hurricane Katrina, more like Hurricane Tortilla, and they relocated to Missouri, and were given a free home from Habitat for Humanity, but the hurricane gave her an excuse for missing medical records. During doctor's appointments, even when Gypsy was much older, she was ordered to not volunteer any information in fear that she'd blow their cover, even though she had thoroughly convinced Gypsy that she was ill. She wasn't allowed to speak, and it was always her mother providing the information. I also forgot to mention that after Dee Dee's family brought up the fact that Gypsy always seemed to be perfectly fine, Dee Dee made it perfectly clear that they were not to speak to Gypsy. which was for both isolation purposes and also she didn't want them putting ideas into her daughter's head that she wasn't weak and she didn't need to be treated like a child. But she was conditioned to act like a very young girl because her mom basically taught her that she could never take care of herself on her own. And she did everything she could to make sure that Gypsy basically regressed and didn't meet certain age milestones to keep her innocent and make her believe she was genuinely sick, which she succeeded until it bit her in the ass later. Also, according to Dee Dee's stepmom, she tried to poison her at one point, so there's that. Naturally, though, as Gypsy became a teenager, even though she didn't know she was a teenager, she wanted more freedom and didn't want to be glued at the hip to her mother every second of every day. She wanted to experience love, see the world, do things with friends, make friends, like most teenagers want. But obviously, this wasn't going to work unless she got fully away from her mother. So she tried to run away. But I want you all to guess what happened after that. Guess. Write it down in the comments. Have you done it? Okay. Dee Dee somehow found her, brought her home, and tied her to the bed, and she wasn't allowed to get up for anything unless she was about to piss herself, in which Dee Dee would stand there while she did that. Did I mention they were literal chains? It was a torture house with Disney princess figurines on the shelves. It was like that picture with the skeleton that has fairy wings. That's the best way I can describe it. Eventually, she was set free, but only from the physical chains. She was not free from the iron grasp of her mother. And both emotionally and physically, Dee Dee Blanchard was killing her own daughter. She had surgeries she didn't need, hundreds of medications she didn't need, a feeding tube which she didn't need, a wheelchair which she didn't need. And if you've ever been sitting somewhere for a long time and your legs go numb, imagine having a wheelchair all of your youth and then trying to stand up. It was destroying her legs and her body was being destroyed. So she was getting closer and closer to death. Eventually, she did want to experience romance, so she snuck onto the computer her and her mother shared and went onto a Christian dating site to hopefully find her bae, as the kids call it. Hallelujah, everyone. This is where she met a man named Nicholas Godejohn, who is very crucial to the story. It seemed like a match made in heaven, pun intended, and they instantly connected. Nicholas happened to have autism, and it's unclear if he truly does have multiple personalities, but he tells Gypsy that he has alternate sides to him, one of them being a 500-year-old vampire named Victor. Why is every vampire's name edgy? It's never just John or Bill, it's always Victor or Damien or some shit. Quick side note, I dated a Damien when I was straight, and he was a vampire because he sucked the life out of me. Get it? Because blood keeps you alive? Anyway, yeah, it's unclear if Nicholas actually has alternate personalities or if he just said that, but after a while, they had their first in-person meetup at the premiere of the live-action Cinderella movie. She knew her mom would never let her go with a boy to the movies, so they came up with a plan where Nicholas would sneak into the row behind them, and Gypsy would ask to use the bathroom so they could do things. However, after a few more secret meetings, Gypsy asked a question that would change everything. And that's where we're going to leave it off for this video. Part 2 will be coming, I promise. I can't leave you guys on a cliffhanger forever. But I hope you enjoyed. If you want to see more of my content or knee slap content, consider subscribing if you like. Anyway, I love you all. Stay safe and never let anybody take your crown.
So I put my middle finger up. I'm done being a slave. My generation's had enough, and you should be afraid. Oh, not your prisoner. Oh, better listen when I say I put my middle finger up.